Hello 8A, welcome to our second flipped video lesson. The first thing I'd like you to do is turn to your table of contents in your interactive notebook and fill in, I believe the pages are 25 and 26 that we're up to. If I'm wrong, you can just put the right pages and we'll correct it tomorrow. The topic for today is solving multi-step equations, and you can put tomorrow's date, which is October 16th. So go ahead, just take a couple minutes, press pause, fill in your table of contents, and then turn to page 25 in your notebook. Okay, so we're on page 25 of your interactive notebook now. Please make sure you're on the correct page, and then fill in tomorrow's date, which is October 16th. And again, today we're talking about section 3-2, solving multi-step equations. Before we actually start solving any multi-step equations, there are two things I would like to review with you. The first is like terms, and the second is the distributive property. We talked about both of these in the last chapter, but just a quick review, like terms have the same variable raised to the same power. Their coefficients can be different. So for example, if you have 2x and 4x, those are like terms. We can add them together. If you have 2x's and then add 4x's all together, you would have 6x's. You may want to make a note that you cannot add variables to numbers. You also can't add x to x squared or y to x. It has to be the same exact variable raised to the same exact power. In this case, the powers are both understood to be 1. And once again, the coefficients can be different. Think back to that Chuck Norris and the plum video. You can't combine Chuck Norris's and plums, just like you can't combine x's and numbers. The second thing I'd like to review with you is the distributive property. The distributive property combines multiplication with either addition and or subtraction. For example, if you have 3 times the quantity x plus 2, what this is telling us to do is to multiply the 3 times everything inside the parentheses, only inside the parentheses. If there's stuff outside, we don't distribute to anything outside the parentheses. And again, when you distribute, you multiply. So we're going to do 3 times x, which would be 3x, and then 3 times a positive 2. So 3 times positive 2 is positive 6. We write it as 3x plus 6. Remember, 3x plus 6, they are not like terms, so that does not equal 9 or 9x. 3x plus 6 is simplified, and that's the last thing that you can do to it, is just leave it in this form. We cannot add apples and oranges. Okay, just take a minute. If I went too fast for you, you can pause. Copy down this onto page 25 of your notebook, and also on the side, make any notes if you have any questions for me for when we have class tomorrow morning. When you're ready to continue, just press play. Okay, we're now going to talk about how to solve multi-step equations. There are a few steps that we need to do. Let me fix that line. There are a few steps that we need to do when solving a multi-step equation. The first is to distribute if applicable, which means if there are parentheses in multiplication, we do that first. Always distribute first. If there are no parentheses and no distributive property, then you can skip step 1 and move on to step 2. Step 2 is to combine all like terms. That means we're either adding or subtracting all the x's or all the y's or all the z squareds. And also, any two numbers that are together, we can combine them as well. Make sure you pay attention. I'm going to put a little star here. Pay attention to the sign in front of each term so that you know whether you're adding or subtracting. Number 3, step 3, after you combine like terms, you should end up with a two-step equation, which we talked about yesterday, or today actually in class. A two-step equation means you undo the subtraction or the addition first, so that would be step 3, and then go back and undo the multiplication or division, which is step 4. The last step is to check your solution, and we really recommend, or I really recommend, that you get your answer and plug it into the original equation and see if it works out to be true. Especially when we get to these multi-step ones, it's imperative that you go back and check because there's more of a chance that you made a slight error somewhere. Okay, just take a minute and copy down these steps and onto page 25. When you're done, just press play, and then we're just going to do some examples, and we'll be done for today. Okay, welcome back. Our first two examples do not have the distributive properties. So for these, we're going to skip step 1 because there is no distributive property. There are no parentheses in these problems. So we can move on to step 2. Step 2 is to combine the like terms. So if we look at our first example, we'll call this example 1, 2c plus c plus 12 equals 78. The first thing that we have to do is combine the like terms. And in this equation, I have a 2c plus c. Those are like terms, 2c and c. Remember, if there's no coefficient in front of it, it's understood to be 1. So basically what this is saying is if I have 2 c's and I add to that 1 c, altogether I have then 3c. So your first step, again, is to combine like terms. You then are going to rewrite the rest of the equation. So the plus 12 and equals 78 get rewritten. If you look, this is now just a two-step equation. Our goal is still the same. We want to isolate the variable. To do this, we're going to use inverse operations, and whatever we do to one side, we do to the other. Our first step now is to undo this addition. So the opposite of plus 12 is minus 12 from both sides of the equal sign. When you do that, these cancel out, and you're left with just 3c on the left side. And it's equal to 78 minus 12, which is 66. We now have a two-step equation, and we can isolate the variable here. The 3 is connected to the c by multiplication, so we want to do the opposite. We're going to divide both sides by 3. The 3's will cancel out, and we'll be left with c equals 66 divided by 3 is 22. And then again, if you want to check the answer, we would plug 22 into the original. 2 times 22 is 44, plus 1 times 22 is 66, and 66 plus 12 is 78. So this answer checks out. Example number 2 is 4b plus 16 plus 2b equals 46. Again, there's no distributive property, so we'll start by combining the like terms. Here I have a 4b and a plus 2b. Remember, we're including that sign in front of each term. So if I have 4 b's and 2 that add 2 b's, that means all together I now have 6b. So I'm combining those two b terms and then rewriting everything else. So the plus 16 and the 46 equals 46. Again, the 2b plus 4b is 6b. We now again have a two-step equation. We're going to undo the addition first. So to undo plus 16, you're going to subtract 16 from both sides of the equation. The 16's cancel out on the left-hand side, leaving us just with 6b. And it's equal to 46 minus 16, which is 30. And our last step again is just to divide both sides by 6 in order to isolate the variable. When we divide on the left-hand side, we're left with just b, and 30 divided by 6 is 5. So the answer we got is b equals 5. Remember, you're not writing 5b, you're not just writing 5, you're writing b equals 5. And if you plug it into the original to check, 4 times 5 is 20, plus 16, plus 2 times 5 is 10, and altogether 20 plus 16 plus 10 equals 46. So this solution also checks out. If you need a minute to finish copying this, just press pause, and when you're ready, go ahead and press play. Okay, our last two examples now. We have example 3 on the left-hand side. Both of these examples involve the distributive property. See the parentheses here? This means we have to distribute first. So step 1 is going to be distribute. And again, you're distributing the number outside the parentheses to everything inside the parentheses only. The first one, number 3, we're doing a negative 2 times b and a negative 2 times a minus 4, negative 4. Negative 2 times b is negative 2b. And if you have negative 2 times negative 4, that actually becomes a positive 8. So instead of writing minus 8, you're going to write plus 8. And it's equal to 12. You rewrite everything else. Once you distribute here, we have just a two-step equation. We're going to undo the addition first. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides of the equal sign. That leaves me with negative 2b equals 4. And now to isolate the variable, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 2. Remember, a positive divided by a negative is a negative number, so b is equal to negative 2. And to check this out, if you plug in negative 2 into the original equation, we would have 2 times the quantity negative 2 minus 4. So negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6, and negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12. So this answer works. For our last example, there is also a distributive property. However, outside of the parentheses is another additional term, a positive 9. So when we're distributing, we must be careful that we only distribute to inside the parentheses. We're going to distribute negative 3 times x and negative 3 times negative 1. So first I'll start just by rewriting 15 equals. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Negative 3 times negative 1 is actually positive 1. So we're going, positive 3. So we'll write plus 3. And then we want to rewrite what's left over, the plus 9. Now when you look at this, we have 15 equals negative 3x plus 3 plus 9. We actually have like terms here. Positive 3 and positive 9, they're both numbers. They are considered like terms. So we're going to now do step 2, which is combine our like terms. I'm going to rewrite everything else. So 15 equals negative 3x, and then positive 3 plus 9 is positive 12, so plus 12. We're down now to just the two-step equation. The first thing I'm going to do is subtract 12 from both sides. When I do that, 15 minus 12 is equal to 3. The 12s cancel out on the right-hand side, so I get 3 equals negative 3x. And now my last step is just to divide both sides by negative 3 to isolate that variable. And we have to remember, a positive divided by a negative is negative 1. So we get x equals negative 1. To check it, if you plug it in, negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. And then positive 6 plus 9 is 15. So it does in fact work out. Okay, that's all we have for our lesson tonight. Please right now, pause me if you'd like, and go ahead and finish copying these two examples. This was example 4 we just did. And then what I'd like you to do is write down any questions that you have, anything you're unsure of. Either highlight in your notebook where you're unsure of, so that first thing tomorrow after the warm-up, you can ask me any questions that you have and we can go over anything. Also, we will practice more problems like this tomorrow. And again, it's helpful if you're unsure of something, replay the video and see if there's anything that maybe will click the second time. But again, so your homework tonight is just to finish filling in your notebook if you didn't already, and write down any questions that you have for me for tomorrow in class. Okay, have a good night. See you tomorrow.